the way the Senate operates when it comes to Supreme Court nominees going forward?
Well, if the rule were changed, it would apply to future Supreme Court nominations.
Well, let's change that.
Yeah, I think once this change occurs, as several of my members pointed out, you've gone back to what was the tradition of the Senate prior to the time Senator Schumer convinced the Democrats to start doing this. And we would be back to what was the practice in the Senate down until Bush 43 was elected president, which everybody seemed to be pretty comfortable with. I mean, remember the Clarence Thomas nomination. There's a Democratic majority in the Senate, the most controversial nomination ever for the Supreme Court, confirmed 52 to 48. Any one senator could have made us get 60 votes. No one did. That's a pretty firmly held tradition. And that's where it was until Senator Schumer convened a little seminar in early 2001 and invited Lawrence Tribe and Cass Sunstein and convinced everybody they ought to use, if you think of the Senate rules as a toolbox, use any rule you want to stop Bush from getting judges. And we had a big shootout, over 10 circuit judges. We considered doing what the Democrats did in 2013, decided not to. There was a settlement. 5 of the circuit judges were confirmed and 5 of them were not. So the practical effect of what appears likely to happen later this week is to move us back to what the tradition has been in the Senate on the executive calendar, to where we were before Bush 43 got elected. If you think of it that way and you view the Senate through the long history of the body, the practical effect of all of this will be to take us back to where we were before Senator Schumer convinced the Democrats to start routinely filibustering judges.
Mr. Leader, what about the idea, though, that once you do this, based on what they did in 2013, what you appear prepared to do come Thursday or Friday, why would we think that there would not, you would not open the Pandora's box here for legislation?
Yeah.
That there would not be 60 votes required for legislation?
Yeah, let me answer that question. Who would be the biggest beneficiary of that right now? It would be the majority, right? There's not a single senator in the majority who thinks we ought to change the legislative filibuster, not one. The difference between that and the executive branch is that the legislative filibuster has been there a long time. Everybody has been up or down, majority, minority at various times. We all understand that's what makes the Senate the Senate. The executive calendar is not what made the Senate the Senate. It was always dealt with on an up or down vote until 2000. So there's no sentiment to change the legislative filibuster. I think Senator Schumer said after being on one of the Sunday shows we were on back-to-back, I think he said no sentiment on that side either. So there's no threat to the legislative filibuster.
This takes the genie out of the bottle. That's what they said in 2013.
You know, how many times do I have to say it? The executive calendar has historically been treated very differently from the legislative calendar. This is not a threat to the legislative calendar. Yeah.
John McCain said anyone who thinks this will be good for the Senate is stupid and an idiot. Do you agree with that?
I don't think I have any comment on that. Yeah.
Susan Rice today said that she did not unmask any names for political purposes. She said that she leaks nothing to nobody and never have and never would. First off, do you trust Susan Rice in her statements? And also, do you think that she should testify or be interviewed by the Intelligence Committee?
Let me tell you what I do trust is Senator Burr and Senator Warner to conduct this investigation in a bipartisan, thorough way. And so we are anxious to hear what their report is. We also know the FBI has a criminal investigation, so there are 2 investigations going on, and I think the American people at some point here will find out exactly what happened on all of these issues that have been swirling around about that pre- and post-election period and whatever interaction there was between the Russians and us and all the rest.
Should they interview Susan Rice?
Mr. Mitchell, now that it's clear that Mr. Gorsuch does not have 60 votes for cloture, are you confident you have the votes to change the precedent?
Yes.
Mr. Leader.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the earlier questions, are you committing that under your leadership you will never remove the legislative filibuster?
Correct.
The White House and the House leaders are currently trying to revive the health care bill. I'm wondering how hopeful you are at this point and how important it would be to get that bill over here into the Senate and what you see as the path forward on it.
Well, if the House can come together with the administration and get a majority of the votes, we'll take it up. Obviously, it's been very challenging. You've all written about it, trying to figure out what will get enough Republicans to pass it, since our Democratic friends, at least at this point, are not interested in participating in the exercise. What I do think is still the case is that the status quo is imploding, and at some point we're going to have to visit this issue.